The first speech in this class, the demonstration speech, is a great opportunity for you to demonstrate your expertise and to share that expertise with the world. So the demo speech is a demonstration speech that we ask that you record outside of class and submit it. We will play these speeches in class. We ask that you record it rather than doing it live in person in front of the class because of a couple of reasons. One, you might choose something that the setting would be more appropriate somewhere outside of the class. If you were going to teach me how to change the oil on my car, it would be much better for you to be on a car and demonstrate it on a car rather than describing it artificially in the middle of the classroom. The second reason why we ask that you record it is that you might choose to teach us how to do something that would take an extended amount of time. And so you can cut that down to meet the time requirements in the class. So we ask that you record it for those reasons. And we have found that many students find it to be a nice entryway into public speaking because you are recording, which means you're not in front of a live audience, which can help if you experience a lot of communication anxiety. So the demo speech is something that you will record. You may edit it, you may not, but that might be something that you will want to consider as you choose your topic. We're going to look at the actual explanation on the Canvas page, and we're going to work through that together. So again, this speech is intended to be an informative speech. You are teaching your audience how to do something so that they can repeat it on their own. For each one of the speeches in COM 210, we will have two emphasized skills. For this speech, it is the use of a visual aid, which is a requirement, and then audience centeredness. Remember, in COM 210, we approach public speaking that the audience is the hero. We will always think about what the audience needs and what would be best for them at every decision we make in our speech preparation and in the delivery. This speech is 3.5 to 5 minutes in length. And then we give you a 30-second grace period on the speeches, which means if you hit 3 minutes, you will not receive a time deduction. And if you go over, if you speak under 5.5, no time deduction. So make sure you're in that window, which is pretty big. And then you might also keep that window of time in mind when you're choosing your topic. So that's the first step in this speech, is that you have to figure out, okay, what is it that I want to give my speech on? What would be an appropriate topic for me? And so I think you might want to think about a couple of things. One is, what is something that you have expertise in? It is very difficult to teach something that you don't know forward and backwards, because the more you understand something, the easier it is for you to break it into steps to teach to somebody else. So you might want to think about that. So what are your hobbies? What is your major? What is something that you do regularly that a lot of people maybe need to know how to complete? And you might also think about, like, what are some careers that you've had? And then you would learn specialized skills in those careers that then you could teach us. Now, I think that one of the hiccups that some people choose in this speech is they choose to teach us how to do something that is too simplistic and not appropriate for your college-aged audience. So while I don't really mind anyone choosing to make ramen noodles in a way that is particularly impressive. I've seen lots of people use ramen noodles as a base, and then they have used it to make other dishes, and that would be appropriate. But what we don't want you to do is just to teach us something that if we just followed the 3 simple steps on the box, we would be able to do it, which would mean we don't really need a video in order to teach us how to do it. But if you have something special about it that we hadn't maybe thought of before and that could enhance it, you're welcome to use that as your topic. I always think that students might, do a little bit of self-reflection, like, what is something I do all the time? Or you might even ask the people, your family and your friends, what is a special skill that if you didn't know how to do, you would come to me and I would be able to teach you. After you've chosen your topic, you're going to want to think about the organization. This speech is organized chronologically. What are the first steps? What are the next steps? What comes after that? What comes after that? So that in that process, we can follow along in the steps. So you're going to organize it chronologically, not topically. So this makes it easy for your audience to understand. I think you might want to think about different ways that you can frame those steps for your audience. So how many steps are there? If you tell me there are 5 steps, then I will be, okay, we're on step number 3. And then once I do step 3, I go to step 4. Or maybe you put those into an acronym that make a word so that then your audience can remember it. We all remember different things that are simplistically framed for us. Next is delivery. You're going to deliver this speech extemporaneous, and we say that if you read to us that you will automatically receive an F. So think about something that you really know, and then as you practice it, through practicing what you're going to say and having keywords on note cards or even on a piece of paper, then that would help your audience follow along and would allow you to focus primarily your eye contact on the camera. And then you will have to use your visual aids. And I don't just want your visual aids to be there so that we can see them, but that you're actually going to have to show and tell simultaneously. For this speech, your body might be your visual aid, or you might bring something else. You might teach me how to shoot a bow and arrow. And so you would have your bow, and then your body, you would be showing us with the bow how to, line up your arrow and where to look and when to release and your body stance, all of those elements associated with the assignment. Or you might show me how to do a particular hairstyle, and your visual aid would be somebody that you asked to come and be a model for you and that you would demonstrate it on their hair. So this speech is, I'd like you to think about how you would be doing this speech in the classroom and try to replicate that. So no screen captures, which means you should not choose a topic that is primarily demonstrated on a screen. Instead, we would like you to see you use some sort of visual aid rather than just demonstrating it online. So a lot of students, those are great YouTube tutorials. It just doesn't meet the standards of a public speaking class. So we're going to want you up on your feet, delivering the speech from a standing position. And so think about that when you choose your topic to make sure that you are doing, not just what you have seen online, but that you will demonstrate it with your physical body in some sort of capacity, and we get to see you interact with your visual aid. So often a mistake that is made in the speech is that sometimes the students don't show, and so they just tell us. So this is not an advice-based speech. It needs to be, you need to choose a topic that you would need to demonstrate how to complete. So you're not just giving advice. So it isn't a speech that you are going to say, here is how you set goals, because that wouldn't necessarily be a demonstration speech. So instead, you're going to give a speech that actually shows me how to pack my bag, and you're going to actually do the rolling or the other things that you all do to pack a suitcase, for a trip so that you don't actually have to pay for your check-in luggage. So think about how you are going to show and tell. So sometimes people don't tell and they only show. So if you're going to show me some particular exercise movements, I'm going to want you to be talking while you're doing those exercises, not just doing them. So you're going to show and tell at the same time rather than showing us and then adding a voiceover. We like to see you be able to speak while you're demonstrating. So they should be happening simultaneously in the speech. The second big mistake that people sometimes forget is they forget to rehearse. It is complicated to explain something that has become rote memory. You do it over and over and over again. And so if you're not careful when you film it the very first time, you'll notice that you haven't broken it up into the appropriate steps, that you forgot something, and then you'll be on step 6 and you'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot. On step 3, you need to do that, which would be very confusing. So you are going to want to have to think it through. And the best way to think it through is to have notes and then to practice out loud before you demonstrate it. And then you're going to also want to make sure that in this speech, you think about the camera angle. What would be helpful for your audience in order for them to understand what it is that you are doing? So think about, from your audience perspective, what angles that they need in order to see it. So we do need to see your body, but there might be places where you would want to zoom in for us to look at a specific stitch that you are doing if you are, doing some sort of craft, but we don't want that craft zoomed in the entire entire time. So make sure that we have a chance to see you doing the speaking, the public speaking part, and then also you can zoom in different sections associated with that. In this speech, we do not need any PowerPoint. You can use note cards if you want. You are required to have some sort of visual aid that you are actually using. We do not require a reference list, but if you do have a source, be sure to orally cite it, and that you will need to turn in an outline of the speech. So we have an example of a demonstration speech that is underneath the resource summary that you're going to want to take a look at to see how it is done. I have found that the two types of demonstrations that people do. You have one where you start the camera and then it films you teaching us how to do a specific, dance move. And then you do it in one shot. And that might take you 5 or 6 times to do it in one shot because you might make errors. And then you just submit that as is. If you have some experience with filming and videos and editing, you might make something. So you might make some your grandmother's favorite brownie recipe. And that might take you, different times because obviously we are not going to be there for the entire time while the brownies cook and just staring at you. So you might have to put it together and then be in the time frame that way. Sometimes people speed up sections. Sometimes people put music over different sections. It's really up to you, but you'll need to make sure that you think about the time frame that is allotted and then how you want to approach that and what your expertise is in filming. Because if you don't have any expertise associated with editing video, it can really get busy. If you are already a pro at it, it should be pretty simple and straightforward for you to do. You will not be graded on how perfect your film editing is, but if you choose to edit a film, there will be some expectations of standards. Once you have your video done, you are going to upload that video to YouTube as an unlisted video. So you don't want it to be private. You want it to be unlisted, or you could make it public if you wanted, but that is not required. But that way, when we play them in class, we can just create a YouTube list and go 1, 2, 3, 4, so that we can move through them quickly. So we don't want the actual video file because that will take up a lot of room on our Canvas page as far as space goes. And we also don't want any of the, problems and, a lot of viruses that we tend to get, unfortunately, passed along to us. So you're just going to do a link to YouTube. And if you don't know how to do that, there's a link for you on Canvas. Okay, that's the speech. It's a really fun speech. I think you should be creative, have a good time with it. It's a lot of fun. Think about what you are really good at, and then also what might be something that your audience needs. And your audience will really appreciate it because if the speech is done well, we should all learn 20 new things that we didn't know before the speech itself on how to do. Let me know if you have any questions or feel free to talk to your lab instructor.